All right, we're recording. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the international, see, I screwed up. Welcome to the Outdoors International Podcast. Today we're going to talk fishing. Paul Thacker is our guest, and Patrick KISSEL. He's our head fishing consultant. He also sells hunts. He and Paul went on a trip to Argentina last month, 2 months ago, a while ago. Not when? December. They went to Jurassic Lake. They caught monster slab trout. And I'm just going to kind of get out of the way and let them talk and throw in some questions here and there. But go for it, guys.
Yeah. Paul had, I guess, getting started. He called me what would be a good year ago, and we started kind of putting a group together to go down and fish with one of our outfitters in Argentina. So we put a hosted group together for December 8th to the 15th with, his dad and then his girlfriend, her dad, a couple other friends, and flew down there and went after some big fish. So, it was pretty exciting once Paul, I guess, we started putting it together, and I realized, because it's a place I had wanted to go to for a long time. It was just a matter of getting a group together to get down there with me. So I was pretty excited when it started coming together, and we had, 6, 7 of us planned to go down there, so I could check it out. And I knew it was a group that I'd fished with a little bit before and kind of knew some of the guys. So it was set to be a pretty fun experience. And I don't know, Paul, what kind of struck at you to plan a trip, but yeah.
Well, I mean, for a little backstory, I had, growing up in Alaska. I've always been an avid fisherman since basically coming out of the womb, I think. And then I kind of got away from it when I got hurt. And I crashed getting ready for X Games and broke my back and got, I'm in a wheelchair for the foreseeable future. Anyway,
hey, Paul,
so,
can I interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
Could you get a little bit closer to your mic? You're a little quiet. Just a touch.
I have to just move this then. Is that better?
Yes, it is. All right, I'll get back out of the way.
I had kind of covered up. So, where was I? Anyway, so once I got hurt, I kind of got away from fishing a little bit because it was something that I always loved to do, but I struggled with how to do it. And when I met my girlfriend, Erin, she is an avid fly fisherman and started going on all these, she was going fishing, and I was absolutely not cool with just staying at home while they were all going and having a good time. So we started figuring it out. And it reintroduced me to the love that is, fishing and fly fishing. And so after a great season 2 years ago in Alaska, somehow, not even sure how the Jurassic Lake, the Jurassic Lake Lodge, which is the opposite lodge of what we went to, their Instagram popped up. And then I started searching and found Estancia Laguna Verde, which is the actual lodge that we went to, and just started checking out. I mean, if you haven't ever searched Jurassic Lake or done any YouTubing of it, it blows your mind. I mean, the absolute dinosaurs and the size of these fish that we catch. I mean, it was a complete pipe dream. At first, and then I showed it to my dad, and then he kind of started. He's like, well, let's see how we get down there, and let's see how much it would cost to fly down there. And then it kind of just started snowballing from there. And then Aaron and Pat have been friends for quite a few years. So she was like, well, I think Pat puts these trips together. And then Pat and I started talking, and then all of a sudden it was, money was put down, and it was time to, get flights. And then we're, on an airplane. It was, it all just kind of happened really, really quickly. So, we'll get into the fishing for sure, but just the anticipation and the fact of the way it all came together was pretty cool.
That's
Right,
awesome.
right. Yeah. So I guess one thing I wanted to put in there is, I mean, the travel there is kind of it's a little bit of an excursion in itself. You know, you figure a day and a half to get to El Calafate, is where you fly into, and then they pick you up from there. And so Paul had set up getting a cameraman to come down there and kind of film some of it and get pictures and stuff. And he had flew down a couple days early. So the plan was coordinated through email and everything. And this was kind of my fault, kind of the lodge's fault, but it falls more on me. But so it's a 4-hour drive from Calafate to the estancia. And over, you know, after the first 2 hours, it's gravel and it's bumpy and it sucks. And we're supposed to pick up our cameraman in Tres Lagos. And, you know, the communication with the driver wasn't the greatest, but I thought I kind of put it in there like, hey, we got to pick up our guy in Tres Lagos. And he's like, yeah, okay. And so we're going, and, you know, a couple hours into that trip, we're all, you know, excited looking at the landscape. It's kind of desert-like, and thought we heard something about Tres Lagos being in 10 minutes. And then I feel like we all just kind of forgot about it. I know I did. And we're going and going, and the town is tiny, right? So we get to the end of the pavement where the trucks are to meet our guides, which would take us the rest of the way, and we're like, oh shit, where's Micah? Like,
Where's the camera guy?
I don't think he's with these guys, you know. And so Faku, one of the guides, you know, we talked to him, and he's like, oh dude, like, and I'm like, well, how far back is this town? You know, we got to go get the guy. So long story short, the main group went ahead of us, and me and Faku went back and got Mike. It was only like 20 miles back down the road, but we ended up driving super fast. Faku used to be a rally car driver, so it's all gravel roads to the estancia, and he was pulling e-brakes and hauling, you know what, to get there. And by the time we got there, I felt like the rest of the crew had only been there for like 15 minutes, and
we just got there.
Just unloading. But yeah, it's pretty funny that we were all so stoked to get to the estancia and see what it was about.
You forgot your camera guy.
Yeah, I totally forgot a friend, you know. But
that's awesome. Did you know Micah before?
I did.
Okay.
He had come to Alaska. I actually have a group of friends that work in a production and do filming, and they were going to come and weren't able to. So I was kind of scrambling, thinking, man, we have to document this trip because it's going to be pretty unique, especially the fact that I was flying, out of the continent with a action track chair, which is the, mobility wheelchair that is all terrain off road. So I wanted to make sure that, they were represented and we were showing folks what is possible and what is out there, that if you put your mind to it, what you can do. So
absolutely.
Anyway, as it turns out, one of Aaron's sponsors, Fishyware, brought a camera crew to Alaska. They were doing some stuff for Orvis, is doing I think it's the 50-50 by 2020, which is 50%, fisher people being women or on the river by 2020, something along those lines. Anyway, they were doing a documentary style stuff. So they took Aaron and I out, and, we kind of told our story, and that's when I got introduced to Micah. And we were actually on Montana Creek in the Matanuska Valley of Alaska when I was like, hey man, what's your December schedule look like? And he's like, I'm pretty free. Why? And I said, you want to go to Jurassic Lake? And he kind of thought about it. He's like, yep. And that pretty much is how that went down.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I talked to him a long time ago, years ago. I can't really remember, and I've never met him, but we just talked online, and he was looking for video work, and he was trying pretty hard to get in with us, but I'm kind of glad he didn't at the time, because we weren't ready for him. I'm glad he went and is doing what he's doing, because he's doing good work. Yeah. And we're ready now, but we weren't ready then. So yeah. I've watched his work though. He does a good job. Yeah, no, I have all of the video footage, and I actually have a YouTube piece. Pat's seen it that I just put together.
and literally it's like 2 hours of one morning of one day.
Wow.
In a little 3-minute video, and it's just all time. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited that his editing and film, what he puts together should be coming pretty soon. I know he's fairly backed up, but I'm excited to see the footage of it and what he puts together, because the blurb that Paul did was pretty solid. It's gets you excited, but anyways, I guess to dive into the fishing, in the estancia, it's out there on one of the lagoons near Strobel Lake, which is known as Jurassic Lake. So it's on a lagoon of its own, privately owned, and there's 10 rooms there. It's a fairly modest little estancia lodge deal, but it's nice. They had recently added on to it, so all the modern amenities. It's solid.
It's modest in size, maybe, but it's gorgeous, and it's the finish. The rooms were great. They accommodated me amazingly, because that was a big question mark. Traveling anytime in a chair, you're not sure if you're going to fit. Through doorways and those type. What's the bathroom going to be like? What is that? And they built ramps for the stairs. They went all out. They put me in a room that was super easy for me to get in and out of the shower, and the rooms are big, the beds were comfy. It was, I can go on and on about the lodge. The staff and the food, and it was awesome. Like if you're going there, it's an absolute no-brainer. That's where you need to go.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah, I was jealous the whole time you guys were there.
Well, we're
right.
My dad and I just booked for 2 weeks in December, so if you want to come, Pat's got some spots open.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do.
Patrick loves to spend my money.
Yeah. Yep. Cory's got a serious fear of missing out, and so do I. But,
I totally do.
FOMO.
You just kind of keep poking the bear. He'll go.
Yeah.
But anyways, so the lodge sits on Laguna Verde. That's the name of it. How the lodge got its namesake, and basically, you can walk right down there and fish. In 2 minutes, fish in the Laguna, which has some really nice sized rainbows, has some browns in it. It's kind of a dirty water, but it's a super good warm up pond, if you will, to Jurassic Lake. I think that first night we all went down there, and in an hour and a half, 2 hours, we all had a couple fish, and then went and had dinner and kind of geared up for the following day to see what it would bring.
Is it connected to the main lake, or is it?
No,
it is.
They're all separate. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a handful of lagoons that are all separate that have fish. But.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think Pat, you and I and John fished till after sunset.
Yeah, we went down there after dinner.
A couple of us went back after dinner and flogged the water for a while, and yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty epic sunset hit, and it was cool. But yeah, I guess to get an idea of the landscape, those lakes actually, years ago, they did connect to Strobel Lake through a creek. So it's like it's Morrow Creek, and there's 12 lagoons that it would drain into, but it's getting so dry in the area that they've literally, I think the last owner, he said in the early 1960s, that creek actually made it to the main Strobel Lake. So it's been like 3 years since they saw any water come into their lagoon there at the lodge. So
it's going away. It's going to dry up.
It fluctuates.
Yeah, that's what people think. But when you talk to those guides and Nico, the one manager there, it doesn't sound like that's, it's just kind of like Paul said, it's kind of going in waves. It'll come back.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, Paul, I guess if you want to talk about day one, or start talking about the first day on the big lake.
Yeah. So, it's all a mystery at this point. We got to play on the lagoon a little bit, and then, obviously not sleep very good that night because of the anticipation of the actual first real day of fishing. and it's kind of I still wake up mornings now and I'm super sad that I'm not there, because they have this strict schedule. Breakfast is at 8:30, you're in the truck at 9, headed to your spot for the day, and that's how it is for the whole time you're there, and you get in this nice schedule of incredible fishing. But anyway, so we all meet down around 8. You got a half hour of really crappy internet service. You might get to check the news or post a picture or two, and then you have breakfast with the group, and then you're loading up and separating into your groups of your pairs or groups of 3s, and then it's anywhere from 15 minutes to 40-minute drive, depending, because Estancia Laguna Verde has pretty much the entire lake they can fish. Jurassic Lake Lodge has a little area that they fish, which is the competitive spot. So there's quite a few. Well, I think Pat, there's probably dozens and dozens of spots that they fish depending on weather and wind, and I think we fished probably 7 of them.
Yeah, maybe. Something like that. Yeah, we stuck to a lot of the same ones, just for better access, essentially.
Yeah, because of the way the wind was, and
right,
so you had a little better fishing anyway. But yeah, so we went out to Sea Bay, which is one of the prime spots that they take groups, and we unloaded, got rigged up, and I actually brought a center pin because I have this insane love affair with the center pin. I didn't even bring a fly rod, which was a mistake for sure. But I was trying to figure out, I was bound and determined to figure out how to fish the center pin in the lake. And because obviously it's a drift style fishing, but I was like, nah, I think I can do it. And for the most part, it actually worked fine. But a fly rod would have been a better weapon of choice in some instances. But anyway, we got rigged up, and I think it was, Micah didn't even have his camera stuff even completely out of the bag yet, and I already had this 12-pound rainbow trout on.
12 pounds.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm like, really? This is how, it was second cast. I casted it once, flipped it out there, let it drift and bob with an indicator, and then it was game time. And it was pretty, just a completely surreal moment when you're like, it's all come to fruition, and you're here, and the track chair is here, and all everybody's bags are here, everybody's stuff showed up, all parties invited are here, and now you've got a fish on. It was pretty unbelievable, actually, to say.
Awesome. Kind of the culmination of everything.
Yeah, it all just, you're like, wow, okay, now it's actually happening. Like, you have officially caught a stupid, ridiculously large rainbow trout in Nebraska.
How do they fight there? Do they fight crazy hard, just like rainbows everywhere?
It's different. It's different because they don't have, they don't have any current to fight. They don't have any natural predators at all. So they're a little fat and lazy, but they're heavy. Yeah. And you will find the ones that are just extremely pissed off when they get hooked, and they'll let you know it. And then you'll find it's not too different from rainbows. Sometimes you'll find the ones that just, go like crazy, and then the other ones that are kind of like, okay, I've done this before, let's just get this over.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not so different. Yeah. But they're definitely heavy. You're in a spot that has big trout when they measure in pounds, not inches.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even know. You're like, what? Inches? No, pounds, but pounds.
And 12 pounds isn't, that's a big fish, but it isn't necessarily, they get a lot bigger there, right? Am I right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I would say they probably average 8 to 10.
Right.
Yep.
I would think that's probably pretty
stupid.
Oh, yeah. And then, you catch a 10, 12 pounder, and they're like, oh, that's a good one, and just throw it back. I'm like, dude, I wanted to take a picture of that one. I'm like, look at a better one.
Yeah. But I think with the day one, we were all kind of in shock and getting pictures. And then, like Paul said, they're like, just let it go. 'Cause after a couple of days of being there, you realize like, yeah, I'm going to get a lot of opportunities to take pictures with these big fish. Cause it's, you know, that average is 8 to 10 pounds. And some days there's a lot of them, you know, you're going to catch like, I don't know. I know I had a day that I think I caught close to 40 fish or hooked, I should say. It's, you know, it's nuts. And then, yeah, as far as the fighting, sometimes like Paul said, they'd kind of just head shake and roll, but they're so freaking heavy to pull in, you know, that it's still a fight. And then sometimes you'd hook those ones that were super hot and just take off running. They'd be jumping and all of a sudden your hook would be straightened out, or, you know, they'd be gone. You know, I definitely had a couple big fish, you know, take me full well into the backing, and a couple of them I never did get to land, which was a bummer because I feel like those were my better ones, as always when they get away. But but yeah, it's
and there's a few browns as well, and are they as big?
Not in the main lake.
Oh, okay.
Just rainbows in the main lake.
Okay.
But they do get in the lagoons. They do get some pretty decent sized browns.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know. Erin said on the way, it was funny. She's like, "Yeah, I've never caught a brown." I'm like, "Oh, well, there's browns in Laguna Verde," and she's like, "Oh, that'd be cool to catch them." And one of the guides was like, "Why did you travel here if you want to catch browns? Like this is the place for rainbows, you know?"
Right.
But I mean, I got what she was saying, and it was funny because then like, I think the first fish she caught was a brown.
Second one she caught was a brown. Yeah.
And
then
a
little rainbow, and then a really nice brown trout, like a 3 or 4 pound brown. It was beauty.
Yeah. And then she caught a second one that night too, which was again like 3-4 pounds. So I was happy that she was able to catch a brown in the location, you know, that we were. Yeah. To knock that off her list. But yeah.
So cool. What about wildlife and stuff? Are there's llamas, or what are there? And those coyote things?
Wanako.
Yep.
Wanako?
Wanako. They're like Wanako. Wanako.
Yeah.
Right. Wanako. Something like
Wanako. Yeah,
Wanako.
It's spelled Guanco. Guanaco.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, there's something I can't remember. I think there's the size up from a llama, right? So they're in that alpaca
similar.
llama family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look just like an alpaca or a llama. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And there's a ton of those things around. We actually, the first night at the hotel when we were in El Calafate, they put out these little appetizers with bread, and we're like, "Oh, what is that?" And he's like, "Guanaco," and we're like, "Okay, what is that?"
What is that?
And he's like, "Llama," and half of the table's like,
I'm like,
hell, you know.
I stayed away from the Wanako. I was like,
yeah. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's just like a kind of like a wild game, like any wild game. But yeah, there's those, and then there's Lesser Rio, which is like the ostrich family,
right?
But it's way smaller,
kind of like an emu, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I saw they just posted some stuff of there's a puma down there, you know, so mountain lion, cougar. We didn't see any when we were there. What else? They got some fox around. An armadillo. Caught an armadillo first day.
Oh, cool. That's always fun.
That's great. That's great video, by the way. I have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also,
it's slow motion as it's running away. It's cool.
Yeah. They also had we saw like a flock of flamingos the one day. We pulled down to the bay, and I was like, what the hell there's these pink birds like floating around like ducks, which I didn't know they did.
Wow,
and
weird.
Yeah, they flew off. I was like, that, you know, it was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't know they had them there.
Yeah, I had no idea. But yeah, a bunch of different ducks and geese and things that are different from what we have, but pretty cool area.
The only actual predator that the trout have are seagulls.
Seagulls?
Yeah.
So you occasionally you'll catch a trout that has it looks like a hole in it or a chunk missing. And we're like, what in the hell is causing, it looks terrible.
Huh.
And when the trout go in the Barrancoso River to spawn, the water fluctuates quite a bit. So when the water gets down and they get stuck in these pools, the seagulls just terrorize them.
Yeah, even the big trout.
especially
yeah.
the big trout. I mean,
Are they
caught a
big ass huge
beautiful-
seagulls or are they normal seagulls?
They look like normal seagulls to me. I don't even remember seeing a seagull. You?
Yeah, I remember seeing a few, but not many. You'd have
but-
thought there would have been more like along that river, just because.
It must have to do with the high winds all the time. They just can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I caught a beautiful, like 10, 11 pound buck. On one side, it was just flawless. And then on the other side, there was like a 3-inch chunk of meat missing right back by its tail, where it had obviously just been pecked and pecked and pecked, like literally down to the bone.
Wow, that's crazy. Never heard of that.
Yeah.
Huh. And the wind is pretty awful, isn't it? For the most part. You're there to fish,
I mean,
right? Because the wind is not fun. That's what I've heard anyway.
You definitely need to be prepared to cast into the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was prevalent, and it was there pretty much all the time. We had one morning where we had a bit of a reprieve, but other than that, it was blowing 20, gusting upwards of over 30 plus, I would imagine. And but the thing about it is, when you're casting into the wind, usually the fish aren't very far out in front of you, because it's like
they're stacked up.
The waves are kicking up all that food
Yeah.
source, and they're just cruising through. I mean, sometimes they're cruising right at your feet, these giant trout that are just cruising through, eating freshwater shrimp and whatever else they can find. And
you're stripping like woolly buggers and stuff, right?
Sometimes. I mean,
okay.
Sometimes you're indicator fishing with a dropper, and even fishing a bead with a nymph dropper.
Okay.
Like something, an attractor, and then they'll take the nymph.
Okay.
So, but yeah, or we did have a morning where that's the actual YouTube video I put together is called On the Dry, and we're fishing in Dry Fly Bay, and it was glassy calm.
Oh, awesome.
You could see fish cruising all over, and typically the guides, when they say when it's real calm, it's tough to catch the fish because they can see
right
so well. But I was pretty fortunate to where Faku, the guide, put me on with a fly rod with shooting line, so it was super easy to get really good cast.
Cool.
And I flipped it out there the first time running a big fat Albert dry fly and a nymph dropper. And he's like, "Can you get it out there further?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I strip it in and false cast once or twice, and then really get it out there. And Micah filmed all of the first part, and then turned his camera off to move. And the next time he turned his camera on, he had just missed this giant frickin' rainbow, like a shark on the top of the water. This V coming, and then just take that. And it was so frickin' cool. I will never
leaving a wake.
Yeah. Completely just like stalking it, and then just slurped it down. And I've never dry fly fished for big trout. I've fished, for little guys in the lake and, in the creek and stuff, but never anything. And it caught me so much by surprise that, you gotta, they say when a trout takes a dry, you got to give it like a 3 count before you set the hook. And I was just like, what do I do? And then pretty sure it was close to a 3 count by the time I actually set the hook. So it actually worked out perfect. Because it actually happened 2 or 3 more times that morning, and I missed them all because I just pulled it right out of their mouth because I was ready. So,
the anticipation.
That's the hardest thing to do. It's like when you're fishing in the flats and saltwater flats, and you can't trout set. Having to think how you set the hook or weight is so hard for me. I'm the worst.
You get in that moment and everything's lost, it's just reaction then. you freak out.
It's like, and you're thinking it the whole time, don't trout set, hit trout set. I mean, idiot. I'm so stupid. The guide's yelling at you, and it's tough.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to untrain your brain.
Boy, it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that morning with the dry flies was cool. We had it was maybe an hour and a half once we got there that it was like calm, and then it started picking up, and then it was game over, windy again. But I remember that morning at the lodge or at the estancia waking up, and I was like, man, something's weird. And it was like dead calm, you know? It's like, that's what's freaking weird. But yeah, it was cool.
The entire lake, which is a massive lake, the entire lake was glass. It was
wild.
Is that the picture where Patrick had to pack you in because your chair wouldn't get you in there?
No, that's so that was river fishing. That's complete. Well, I'm sure we're gonna get to the river fishing.
I'll shut up.
No,
that was my favorite part, because then the center pin, you know, was anyway.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say with that day that it was glassy, I think everyone in the group got at least one fish on a dry fly, which was awesome because, like Paul said, you see these fish cruising all over, and then throw your stuff out there, and they'll like sometimes they come up and like kind of be looking at you, you're like, oh yeah, it's gonna happen, and they're like, oh, gone. You're like just deflated, you know. But yeah, something special about watching a 10, 12 pound rainbow come and slurp in your dry fly. But yeah. And then the other thing I was gonna say was the wind, you know, like Paul said, you get used to it, and like you said, it's a destination that you're going to fish, so
you're
I mean, the weather's gonna
for
you
sure.
have to be prepared for it.
Yep,
that was
absolutely.
We were watching YouTube videos when we first started even looking and talking about it, and my dad loves planning that kind of shit. So he's checking weather patterns and all kinds of stuff. So we knew, and he's like, man, it looks like the wind blows. Then the more he gets into it, he's like, yeah, it looks like the wind blows all the time.
Yeah. No, but if you can get it out there 30 feet, you're in the game for sure.
So that's not bad.
No. Well, until you have that 30 mile an hour headwind with some gusts, it can get frustrating. But as long as you don't let it get frustrating or frustrate yourself, it doesn't matter. And there's so many. Estancia Laguna Verde has so many lagoons and bays that they can get you in and fish. So if it's like a 30-40 mile an hour headwind and it's not happening, you can't get your cast out, they're going to have another spot they can drive you where that's at your back, and you can just roll it out there. I mean, there's so many areas that, you know, if you're struggling with the wind, they're going to get you somewhere where you can get your cast out there and fish effectively. So
if you're going to Jurassic, I would say to have a reel that's got shooting line on it would be a huge benefit. If you struggle at all with a fly cast, that will definitely help get you in the game and keep you in there, and more so. I mean, I'd never fished with a fly rod with the shooting tip on it ever.
I never have either.
It blew my mind. I will have one for sure. Actually, we ordered it already. So
yeah,
because it's so much easier, and I mean, just even overall fatigue, like throughout the day. I mean, if you've got to do 6 false casts or 8 false casts to get regular fly line out, you have to do 1 maybe or 2 with the heavier line. It's a different setup, but I was impressed with how it worked.
That's cool,
especially for there. I mean, because to get it low and in the wind, it cut right through it. It was awesome.
Yep.
We lost Patrick. Oh, there you are.
I had a call coming in. Not important. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about the river. So there's the Barrancosa River, which comes in off the mountains, and that's the main inlet, or the only inlet now, into the lake where those rainbows will spawn. There's 2 strains of rainbows. One's kind of a steelhead strain out of the Santa Cruz River, which actually came from California. And then there's one that's rainbow. So you get these fish that'll spawn in the springtime when we were there, like from late October to early January. And then you get the steelhead strain will come in those to that river in the fall, which you're looking at March, April timeframe. The thing about fall is the water levels can really suck, so they can't get up there as far if the water level's low. and some years they actually won't spawn
Really?
because they can't get in there. But they'll hang on to those eggs for years. So it's weird. You'll catch some of those big hens or females in the lake, and they're literally just fat, full of roe.
Even
And they'll
dropping
actually,
eggs at times.
they'll be spitting them out sometimes. It's like, what the heck? But they hang on to them for 3 years, and if they don't spawn, they actually will die after that many years. But
do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as the river goes, it's pretty awesome. I'll let Paul tell the story. You know, I got some myself, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the river creates a whole new set of problems because it's a and not a long hike, but it's a steep downhill down to where I was fishing. So I hired a Sherpa, and his name is Pat Kissel. Basically, I got on his back, and the first day we went to the river was absolutely terrifying because I'm like, oh God, because it's steep, and I'm just hanging on around his neck and dangling. And fortunately, Pat's like 7 feet tall, so my feet were dragging on the ground as we went down. But it went. We made it down, and we just carted my regular wheelchair down and had a kind of a flat spot where I could sit riverside, and yeah, we made it down there, you know, without incident, surprisingly enough. And then the next times we went down the river, it was piece cake. So.
Right.
So yeah, the river. I mean, it was pretty. I mean, that was bringing the center pin. The guides were pretty. They're like, no, what is this thing you're trying to fish with? They'd never even seen one, never even heard of one, and they kept trying to get me to fish a fly rod, and I'm like, just trust me, just give it a minute. And anyway, it was probably second drift when I caught my first. I mean, you can see these giant rainbows just
I gotta interrupt for 1 second because my memory was carrying him to the spot where we were gonna, you know, have him set up, and I got him, you know, around his arms are around my neck. I can hardly breathe because he's got my Adam's apple jammed up my throat. But I remember getting to that pool, and we all were kind of walking, and I think Paul or someone pointed out, like, did you see that? And we're all like looking like, holy shit. And you can see these fish, like multiple fish in this pool.
Big. I mean,
so
big.
we're like, we're like stoked, like, oh God, you know, this is going to be nuts. But anyways, go ahead, Paul. That was just my biggest memory that I can remember that first day. It's pretty wild. So
yeah, for sure. So I let the guide kind of set me up, and I brought all of my own trout flies. I brought I custom painted beads. I brought, you know, stuff that we use in Alaska all the time. We ended up using a whole lot of the stuff that I had in my bag. I have I got a lot of bead painting to do by the end of the trip. The guides all have handfuls of my stuff, but yeah, I don't even remember. I had a little like a bead, and then a dropper it was just like a standard trout, you know, store bought, like little mini jig head with a fuzzy like sockeye egg. It was what it looked like as the dropper. And it literally, I would first cast, got it out there, missed the fish, second cast, hooked just a stud. And I mean, you know, that I think the first one he figured was like 13 pounds, maybe 12, 15 pounds, maybe 14 pounds.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. And it was just like, wow. And then from that point forward, I made a believer out of the guides with the center pin.
Yeah.
Because it was the rest of that half day we fished, it was really good. I think I fished the river 3 times. The last day, they're like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I want to fish the river the whole day.
Yeah.
Because it was really windy that last day. It was really windy. And trying to morph a cast on the lake in the wind with a center pin was it was not I figured it out, and was able to make it work, but it was not the easiest thing. It was much easier to fish. So it was easier to use a fly rod in the wind on the lake, but harder on the river to get, because you got to get a good drift.
Yeah.
So I have a question I'm going to ask that's going to expose my naivety. I don't know what a center pin is. What's the difference between center pin and a fly rod?
So a center pin, if you for the average, if you don't know what it is and you look at it, it looks like an oversized fly rod or fly reel, excuse me. Except it has monofilament.
Oh, so it's the reel. It's not the rod.
It's not the rod. Yeah. It's
Okay.
well, and the rod's it's like a noodle rod. So they're a little bit longer. They don't run in weight like they're a little bit different.
Okay.
I'm trying to think the other name of the rod that you would be familiar with. Anyway, so the reel doesn't have
a mooching rod, isn't it? Isn't another name mooching rod? No, I don't know.
There's another anyway. So basically, the premise is that when you're drift fishing, especially in places like the Kenai and stuff in Alaska where the fish are, or smaller rivers where they're, if you're not getting a natural drift, you're not getting a bite.
Right.
It's that simple. So the center pin allows you to get a nearly flawless drift much longer than you would with a fly rod with no mending, because the reel doesn't have any drag. It's actually the line's pulling out. There's no resistance. You're just getting a perfect drift bobbing down the river.
Gotcha. Okay, so for steelhead here in Idaho, that'd be the way to go, right?
That is absolutely where it shines.
Yeah.
River fishing.
Okay.
But I'm gonna interrupt here and say that as awesome as it is, Cory, you would really struggle with it because
I suck so bad.
No, I'm just poking you, but no, that drag, like Paul said, it doesn't have a drag. So when you cast, there's a lot that goes into fingering the reels so that it doesn't create a giant bird's nest. I mean, Paul actually sent me one, which was awesome after this trip, and I tried it a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely wasn't doing it right. I mean, I was getting it out there and getting some good drifts, but it was a lot of just big old clusters. Like, shit.
That's the biggest reason why more people don't fish a center pin. It's got a steep learning curve, but once you figure it out, it's absolutely deadly.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, the river fishing was just awesome, and the guides were. We didn't have any issue with them trying to switch me to a fly rod after just an hour on the river. So the last day, I was like, if we can, I'd like to fish the river both halves of the day, because as the days work, you go out in the morning to a spot, you fish for 3 or 4 hours, and then everybody gets together in a centralized area, and you have a big lunch like together. The guides cook right there in these little huts that they have built in different spots around the lake, and then you go out for a second half of the afternoon. So I mean, the days are long. I mean, they're 12-hour days out on the water fishing. So it's not like you go out for a few hours and then you're chilling at the lodge. You're gone at 9 and you're not back till 7 or later. So anyway, I was like, if we can do it, I'd like to fish the river. So the first half of the last day was pretty solid, probably 8, 10, 12 fish, something like that. Lost one that I actually told the guide Faku after. I'm like, if that happens again, you need to lie to me, because we had it and it was massive. I mean, the girth on this thing was it was insane. And we had it in the net, and the last ditch effort, that fish flopped out of the net and the hook popped. And
oh, no.
That was the only time I'd heard Martine, the other guy, cuss the whole trip.
Did he say "fuck you"?
He was pretty bummed. And I was like, "Fuck you, how big do you think that one was?" And he's like, that's probably 9 kilo. That was which is pretty near 20 pounds.
Oh, man.
And I was just
painful.
like, okay, just lie to me next time. He's like, well, you asked.
Yeah.
You guys got some awesome fish, but sometimes they post a fish that is just incredible on their page. Just humongous.
There was probably 3, maybe 4 fish that would have been north of 20 pounds that we had
and lost them.
Couldn't quite get in the net. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of trout, especially when you're fishing in the river, because the first thing they want to do as soon as you set the hook is just go down river, which is a waterfall.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got to be a little heavy-handed to keep that head upstream. Otherwise, they're going to take you to lunch.
Right. And it's got to be harder. You can't move with them, can you?
I'm not moving. Yeah. It's
right.
all done.
Yeah.
So, I definitely lost some fish because I didn't have any choice. It was either try and keep them pointed in the right direction or they were gone. So,
yeah. Big rocks and stuff, they just wrap you around. It's just like there's nothing you can do,
Right.
So the first half of the day on the last day on the river was pretty solid. So then we went to lunch and somehow I convinced Pat to carry me back down to the river again for the second half of the day, and it was just Martine and I, and we fished a couple of things, and then he's like, well, have we tried this yet? And he had I think they're called bait balls, the beads, where they're soft rubber on the outside, but they have hard core on the inside, so they're like a best of both worlds. And anyway, it was just a random like light pink with some blue fleck in it, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's try that one. We haven't tried it yet. And for the next probably 2.5, 3 hours, I bet I caught more fish, hooked and caught more fish than I did the entire week before. It was wow. I can tell you right now that my shoulder is still not right for that last day, because it was at one point it was 7 casts, 7 hook sets, 7 fish in the net in a row, all over 10 pounds. I mean, it was just
that's just stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I had to stop. I'm like, dude, I have to take a break. Like, I'm complete. Like, my fingers are tingly and stuff because my arm is going to sleep.
Right. I'm tired of catching big fish.
It was absolutely just insane. And I know that I'm not the only guy that had days like that. I mean, the dry fly morning, my dad and the gentleman he was fishing with went down, and they were fishing just a bay away from us, and we're not having the same luck we were until the wind picked up a little bit. And then my dad was like, dude, it was every time you could see the fish in the waves, and every time you could get within 8 or 10 feet of where the one would take off out of that school and just chomp whatever was out there. It didn't even matter. It was wow. And he was like, it was every other I mean, I've got video footage of Erin, my girlfriend, landing a fish. There's a fish jumping in the background, and then when it gets panned over to that one, it's on my dad's line. And then while that shot's being taken, there's another fish jumping in the background, which is Pat.
Yeah.
All just, I mean, it's
crazy.
It's a pretty mind-blowing place.
Why did it get so big there? Is it the feed, or what is it?
Yeah, they just I think they just like swim in circles and eat scuds, and they also have Daphnia, which is like a zooplankton,
right?
Like microscopic. But they just, I swear, you watch them come through in schools, and they swim really slow, and they're just like eating and eating. They're just professional feeders. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
I mean, there's nothing to run from. There's no current to fight.
Only those damn seagulls.
Yeah. And that's rare. So, but I mean, you can YouTube Jurassic Lake, and you can see these clouds of freshwater shrimp that are just something about the lake's ecosystem, and it is just in overdrive.
I'll post some videos and pictures on this when I edit it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the river too, like I had a day I went up with, I think I went up with Martine, and we were throwing a mouse. So I was swinging a mouse through, and I didn't ever land one of those big fish, but I had a couple just big old, slow come up and gulp it, and I screwed the hook set up.
Yeah,
And,
I was gonna say it was self-imposed.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, he's coming! Oh, I just pulled it right out of his mouth.
Yeah, the first one especially. But yeah, caught. They have some little residents in there, which are like 12 to 16 inches. I caught some of those on a mouse, which is fun, just because it's something different.
I might have to show you how to mouse one of these days.
Beautiful dark colors. Yeah, right. I took you. I remember that one time we went fishing last year.
I know. I talk lots of shit.
But yeah, with the river too, you can throw dry flies. Like when those fish aren't going up to spawn in those main time frames, there are still a few of those big ones in there. And I guess you can kind of stalk around and sight fish them with a dry or something bigger on the surface, or a streamer, which sounds like it could be pretty fun too. But yeah, and then the lake that day that we had that triple, we got a picture of, which was cool. But it's like, I don't know, it's pretty mind removing when you see those waves coming in, and every time a wave like comes up and rolls, you'll see like 20, 30 fish in that wave. And
like in the ocean when you see the dolphins and stuff. Wow, cool.
And there's awesome. They're like 8 to 15 pound fish. I mean, and then every once in a while you'd see that one. It's like, oh yeah, that's that 20 pounder. Like that one is another step up from those other fish, But yeah, that one day we got that triple. I mean, there was hundreds of fish in that bay. It was unreal. Yeah, I can't even.
Sorry about coffee.
A sight that you won't forget.
It's one of the only places that you can see fish in the water, and they actually end up being bigger than they look in the water.
Wow.
Yeah.
You'll see what
it's
and then you have it on the line, and you're like, holy shit, that's way bigger than I thought it was.
Right. Yeah, they're just so stacked, like our pictures are great. And you can tell they're huge fish, but I'm telling you, like every one is just a freaking football fat, You get a nice big long fish, but like what you can't really see is just how girthy those things are.
Right.
Pretty nuts. They're healthy fish.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you should. Everybody needs to go. If you're a trout fisherman and you haven't been to Jurassic Lake, you're not doing yourself any favors, because it's a.
Yep.
I mean, it was a once in a lifetime trip that we're doing again, but twice as long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again after that.
I mean, I talking with my dad, which was even really, I mean, that was part of the the incredibleness of the trip, was taking my dad, who's in his early 70s now, and we as adults have really never done anything like this as far as a trip goes, and that in itself was cool, but the experience and how much fun, and to see my dad out of his element, and just that was cool. And then to see him just crushing, because he's not he's grown up fishing, but he's not what I would consider an avid fly fisherman by any means.
I was just going to add that. How would it be for a beginner?
Relearn. If you can figure out how to cast, you'll catch fish. If you can cast, you'll catch fish. It's that simple. So
wow.
And every morning.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, with Dennis, with your dad, every morning, except maybe one, I'd get up to have coffee at 7:15 or something, and you'd look down on the lake, the lagoon, right at the estancia, because it sits up on a hill and overlooks, and Dennis is down there in the corner, and half the time he'd have a fish on, and I'm just like, this guy's getting up at 5:30 and fishing for a couple hours before.
He was down there at sunrise every morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
But,
yeah, it was great.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's a better place to catch that quantity and quality of fish anywhere in the world. I mean, there's places obviously like Alaska, different lakes in the lower 48 that get some hogs, and there's big fish around, but honestly, you can go down there and I could almost guarantee you like a 14, 15 pound trout in a couple of them. It's, incredible. I mean, it's unreal.
Oh.
So
Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested in that trip, just look us up, Outdoors International, and we'll get you in touch with Patrick, and he can set you up with that.
Yeah,
Yep,
the deal
definitely.
though is that if you're going to go, I have to come with you.
Yeah, you'll be guided by Paul, and you have to pack Paul to the river.
Yeah, I can do that. No, honestly,
Fuck.
that's those memories, man. Those are for me, being a guide background. Those are some of the best. I mean,
absolutely
best memories for me, man. Is like I said multiple times when we were there, is just seeing the group as a whole, but also Paul like just fishing his ass off and just like a little kid, man, just loving it, you know,
fun.
and being able to help out where I could is, you know, seriously, it's pretty cool to do. So, but yeah, I don't know if we missed anything or questions.
Did you guys go to town
or something?
So after, I think you guys went to town and kind of did the touristy thing while you're there. Was that cool?
Micah did. We didn't.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
So on the way down, we spent a couple. We kind of all came in on separate flights, and 5 of us, my dad, myself, my girlfriend, her dad, and then his buddy, met in Buenos Aires.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't.
Yeah, you were there to fish.
We were there to fish. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I just thought I saw some pictures. They must be Micah's.
At the end, you're exhausted.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, as far as piggybacking something off of it, there's definitely like the Fitzroy, El Chaltén you can go to, and there's touristy things, and if you're into climbing or the mountains and that stuff, there is stuff, but you know, for me, yeah, there's glaciers and
right.
But for most people, it's kind of it's a fishing destination. It's not. I'll tell you, it's not somewhere you'd want to bring your non-fishing, you know, spouse or something, because there's just
not much
unless they're cool with like reading a book and being in a cool area and like that experience. Yeah, but there's just not, you know, there's no touristy things to do. I don't.
What
about
that?
I wouldn't recommend it.
What about that? That trip we just got, the Dorado riverboat trip.
Yeah.
Did you piggyback that with this trip?
Yes. Yeah, that's cool. Actually
that'd be awesome.
That's something I'm considering. I want to try and go check it out next year. But yeah, so the Dorado River Cruiser's just outside of Buenos Aires, about 2-hour drive, and then you boat out to this, you know, houseboat, and you can fish that anywhere from 3 to 7 days. So that is something you could do on the front end or back end of this trip, because you got to fly into Buenos Aires anyways. They'll pick you up there. You could fish that, go back to Buenos Aires, fly down to Calafate, and do Jurassic Lake, you know. So that is an option. And if you're into the city stuff, if you want to see Buenos Aires, I'm sure there's a lot to do, but I get pretty uneasy when I'm in the city, so I don't do well in civilization. But yeah, I don't know if anything else, Paul or Cory, that you can think we missed or want to mention.
I don't think so.
The one thing I would say, if you've got people that are in the similar situation that I'm in and have questions about how the trip went and how to do it and what worked and what didn't, they could definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm super easy to find on social media. So
okay, yeah, I'll put your contact information on our site when I post this. Perfect.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Paul. I'm definitely using you as a reference if I get guys interested and want to hear another side of the story.
Yeah, definitely doable.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yep.
Well, cool, guys. We done?
Yeah. Wrap it up.
Well, I sure appreciate it. This has been a good one. Our quality, I think, is getting a little bit better. I apologize because the last few, the audio sucked, and then the audio got a little better, and then the video sucked. And I think I'm slowly getting it dialed in.
We're reeling it in.
Yeah. So I think it'll just get better and better. And let us know if you have anybody that you'd like to see us interview. If you'd like to be on the podcast, just let us know. And if there's anything you'd like us to discuss, just leave us a comment or give us a call. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening.
Right on.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.